pass will make sure that we have a just and equitable clean energy transition as a fundamental human right, civil right for all, especially as it relates to ensuring that our communities of color, our communities, have equitable access to clean energy benefits, have equitable access to good paying solar jobs. So it's important that we're here today to begin this conversation, and we thank you for your time. We thank you for your interest. Why this issue matters. This time together that we will spend discussing what is going on specifically in Illinois, it's important to remember the local context, but it's also important to remember the connection that the local has to the greater global view, because indeed, we are all connected. What we know is that the threat of climate crises has reached new heights. We know that cities are taking note and changes are being made. We know that policies are being proposed to alleviate the threat of climate emergencies. We know that plans to transition whole infrastructure systems to clean energy are being adopted and implemented. And what we also know is that marginalized communities of Black and Brown people living in urban centers are often underserved and overlooked when municipalities begin to transfer and transition to a green economy. This picture is what was left in the Bahamas when our Bahamian brothers and sisters suffered Hurricane Dorian in 2019, and this was the most powerful storm on record to hit the country. What we know is that climate change and climate emergencies and climate science is showing us that these storms are just getting worse and more often. The World Bank estimates that in 3 regions alone, in Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia, will generate 143 million more climate migrants by 2050. These will be people who are escaping crop and failure areas, escaping sea level rising, escaping lands that have been ruined by hurricanes and storms, and mostly these migrants will be coming from Sub-Saharan Africa. So not only are our neighborhoods becoming hotter in the summer and milder in the winter, there is a global impact that this whole issue has on our brothers and sisters. And from a global perspective, we know that wealthy countries are able to buy their way out of the threats attached to climate crises, and poorer countries and communities will suffer. So it is imperative that we make this shift to a green economy. It is imperative that we, communities of color, are at the table. It is important that we participate and that we are a part of this conversation as our state is making some important changes. As you know, the Samuel DeWitt Proctor's conference mission is to nurture, sustain, and mobilize African American faith communities in collaboration with civic, corporate, philanthropic leaders to address the critical needs of human rights and social justice within the local, national, and global communities. Indeed, we are an organization that believes in hope in action. So again, we want to make sure that as this state, as Illinois transitions to a clean energy state, we want it to be an equitable transition. We want justice to be a part of the conversation. We want human rights to be centered and access for all as we make this transition in our state. We want our churches to know about energy audits and have access to money-saving opportunities so that they can save resources, especially during this critical time. We want our communities to know about the cutting-edge job training and job placement and job openings that will become available through this transition to a clean energy state. So please, as we go through this conversation, be thinking of your specific community, be thinking of benefits for your specific church. So what is going on in our state? I just want to quickly give you a little bit of history about what happened in our state a few years ago. The Future Energy Jobs Act was passed, and it paved the way and it broke ground for Illinois just 3 years ago. It mostly concentrated in rural Illinois. It concentrated on solar and wind resources, but not many people of color, not many communities in the urban centers in our state knew about this program or benefited from any of the programs. So it generated between $12 and $15 billion in private investments for Illinois in renewable energy. The Future Energy Jobs Act goal was to power 1 million homes by 2021 with solar and wind energy, to bring Illinois Solar for All to disadvantaged communities, and to make more energy savings available and lower electric bills. But again, not many of us knew about this act and about the programs that came out of it. But the Future Energy Jobs Act did well. It passed. It had a lot of publicity in other areas. And so gaining off the momentum of the Future Energy Jobs Act, the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition was formed. And this is, of course, Congressman Bobby Rush, and he is saying this is a coalition that will not be stopped. It is a coalition formed to be built on the winds of the Future Energy Jobs Act. 55 businesses, people from the environment, people from the labor field, people from consumer advocacy leaders joined together to form this coalition. And here you see just some representatives of some of the organizations. And the coalition's main goal is to push state lawmakers to strengthen the state standards for renewable energy and efficiency. A move that advocates would say would spark more than 30,000 new jobs in Illinois each year. Also, this coalition was focused on equity as Illinois transitions to a clean energy state. So as the coalition was interested in on equity and on how these programs that come out of clean energy acts and clean energy programs could make it and be successful in urban centers, they began to have listen, lead, share opportunities where they listen to folks around the state about what their interests were in clean energy. They shared the facts about some of these programs, and then they had a conversation to see what would work for their community. So today we are going to have something of a listen, lead, share virtually. And these conversations have been happening all over the state. And so we want to talk about the Clean Energy Jobs Act. We want to talk about the benefits of clean energy. And we want to talk about how we can begin to have these conversations in our own local communities. Now, of course, we have to acknowledge that COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted Black, Brown, and underserved communities, and this matters. The Clean Energy Jobs Act would improve air quality, which reduces risk and accessibility of COVID-19 and put people back to work, especially in communities of color and in places where coal plants operate. The Clean Energy Jobs Act was created with equity and environmental justice at its core. So this is why it matters to us in particular. This is why the Clean Energy Jobs Act matters. But before we get into the details about the Clean Energy Jobs Act, this is the act that was formed out of all of these listen, lead, and share opportunities that the coalition had around the state. We want to focus on the clean energy benefits that are there for us as we make this transition. So let's talk about some of the benefits. Equitable workforce and business development is one of the clean energy benefits. This includes programs and initiatives that can directly impact workforce development, resources to counteract structural, historical, and institutional barriers that benefit marginalized job seekers. Another benefit of clean energy is energy access and solar for all. These are policies and programs that can be specifically designed to bring access and benefits of renewable energy, such as wind and solar, to vulnerable and overburdened communities. Another benefit is renewable energy. So the climate crisis presents an unparalleled opportunity to transition our current energy system in our state, largely reliant on expensive and polluting fossil fuels, to clean and affordable renewable energy. Energy efficiency. Our state, Illinois, can expand gas and efficiency programs and ensure electric efficiency programs continue past 2030, generating substantial customer savings and billions in economic activity. Illinois can transition its power sector away from fossil fuels by 2030, support workers in communities impacted by the decline of coal, and expand clean energy generation jobs in our state. Illinois can set new targets for electrification of transportation and create planning processes to ensure the transition away from fossil fuel vehicles lowers the cost of the electric grid. Another benefit is a just transition for workers and communities. So as we transition, as our state transitions away from fossil fuels, Illinois must develop a plan that helps impacted workers and communities adapt to the inevitable energy transition and forge resilient economic futures. So how will we benefit from a clean energy future? Well, we just went over a few points, but specifically as communities of color in our state, a clean energy future is essential to our communities to ensure that we have a chance at surviving and thriving while we continue to sustain our communities during the multiple pandemics that we face. So it's important for our wellness It's important for our representation as Illinois makes this transition to a green economy. You people of faith, you clergy and lay leaders are the trusted messengers. Seminarians, activists, student leaders are the trusted messengers that can most effectively bring these important conversations to our congregations. In considering COVID-19, racism, and health disparities, we know that our communities are more vulnerable than ever. We need jobs that will be sustainable and make sense for our future. We also need holistic justice that's embodied in policy that will ease the burden of maintaining our livelihoods by promoting smaller bills and cleaner air. So as we are grappling with the effects of COVID-19, and we are also facing an unprecedented increase in Illinois' electricity bills due to past decisions by the current administration, and also continued rising unemployment rates from all over our state, we know that these benefits matter. So let's now pivot and get into what the Clean Energy Jobs Act is all about. The Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition advocates for clean energy included 4 policy pillars in the Clean Energy Jobs Act. These policy pillars are inclusive. They were formed again by Listen, Lead, Share. So our voices are important for informing how these pillars, these 4 policy pillars, can be played out in our communities. So it's important that we understand and look at each one. So the first policy pillar, promoting jobs, equity, and economic opportunity, especially in communities of color. So in this policy pillar, they are talking about creating clean jobs workforce hubs. This will be a network of frontline organizations that provide direct and sustained support for minority and disadvantaged communities, including job opportunities. This will create a contractor incubator program that focuses on the development of underserved businesses in the clean energy sector. And finally, this will include priorities. This will include a point that prioritizes companies that implement equity actions to ensure equitable representation in Illinois' clean energy workforce. So of course we know that this pillar is so important, especially as mentioned earlier, the unemployment rate is still rising all around the state. So many have been impacted by COVID-19. And even before COVID-19, we know that unemployment was a problem in our community. So this pillar creates opportunities, especially for the young adults coming up who will be leading us in our future as Illinois becomes more developed in this clean energy movement. The second pillar, ensuring Illinois reaches 100% renewable energy by 2050. This pillar includes programs that build more than 40 million solar panels and 2,500 wind turbines all across our state by 2030, generating more than $30 billion in new infrastructure in the state. This will tap into the falling costs of wind and solar, lowering costs for consumers. One of the myths about clean energy is that it is not affordable. There are so many money-saving, affordable, money-efficient resources available, and this program is really pointed on one of them. Another point is that it will expand solar for all and ensure that people have access to solar in their community. And finally, this will expand goals for energy efficiency to lower costs and directs utilities to evaluate lower cost alternatives to modernizing infrastructure. This is really important, especially for us as we think about our churches, our church buildings. There are lower cost, energy efficient practices that we will be able to put into action. And this pillar includes important resources to help us do so. The third policy pillar, reducing the equivalent of 1 million gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles from the road. This will include taking our electric vehicles and turning them into electrified vehicles. This will empower communities to develop community energy and climate plans to drive comprehensive local investment in energy, transportation, and workforce. This will create new beneficial electrification initiatives to incentivize electric vehicle charging focused on vehicles that create local health impacts. And finally, this pillar includes programs that create the Electrical Vehicle Access for All program to ensure that all Illinois residents can benefit from the electric vehicles and support the creation of low-income electric vehicles, car sharing, and last-mile electric shuttles to serve transit deserts. This is so important, especially as we think of pollution and reducing our footprint. Electric vehicles are truly the way of the future, and this pillar includes tangible ways that our communities can be a part of that transition, that we can become electric vehicle, car sharing, electric shuttles. We can have electric shuttles in our communities. We can create community energy and climate plans that will reflect the voices of our communities. So this pillar is so important as we think about a transition to a clean energy state. Pillar 4, achieving a carbon-free power sector by 2030 that creates jobs in communities abandoned by coal-burning companies. So this will direct the Illinois EPA to begin a comprehensive stakeholder process that prioritizes carbon reductions in impacted communities and reduces harmful pollution from power plants to zero by 2030. That is truly amazing. This will create clean energy empowerment zones to support communities and workers who are impacted by the decline of the fossil fuel generation. And finally, this pillar includes programs that will direct the Illinois Power Association to produce clean energy and capacity resources to achieve customer savings and expand renewable investment. So how will we benefit from the policy pillars that are included in the Clean Energy Jobs Act? So of course, just some of the ways I think that we've already mentioned. We will have access to lower cost energy alternatives. This is a huge benefit for community restoration. We're talking about equity, and that's the way we'll benefit from solar for all, electric vehicles for all. These are bridges that allow our communities to have access to these programs. So equity is a part of the policy pillars, which is important. Wellness, we're talking about improved air, improved breathing, and this is important, especially in the COVID and post-COVID environment that we will be in for our wellness. Future-minded youth, these job workforce hubs and job trainings and new opportunities will help our youth be future-minded and take advantage of these opportunities, and then offering finally sustainable, well-paying jobs, not just jobs that are not able to provide efficient benefits for us and our livelihoods and our families, but jobs that are well paying and jobs that are sustainable, that we will be able to learn with, grow with, and benefit from. So this is what our state is doing to ensure that our future is a clean energy future. And so many of us don't know about these programs, don't know about the Clean Energy Jobs Act, don't know about the history, the Future Energy Jobs Act that was passed 3 years ago, and don't know about the programs that are contained in the policy pillars that will be so beneficial and so important for our communities. So this is what we are asking you to do. We're asking you to be a partner with us in talking about these 4 pillars. We're asking you to give your voice to the benefits that are important to your community that we must take advantage of. Because again, as mentioned earlier, you are the trusted messengers. You're the voice that your community listens to. So if you're talking about these pillars and how we all benefit from a clean energy future in our state, we know that we will be at the table, we will be making a difference, we'll be taking advantage of these resources when they become available. And of course, we encourage you to have your own community conversation. When I started this, I mentioned that this was just the beginning. So we want to continue this conversation with you. We want to support you in having your own conversation about the clean energy benefits that are available to us, about the Clean Energy Jobs Act, and specifically about the 4 pillars, if you're interested about that. So we need you to partner with us in this work. Please visit our website, www.sdpconference.info. You can visit us at the Proctor Conference on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And we need you in partnering with us to help move this work forward, to help bring awareness to this, because of course, we want a future in our state where our wellness, justice, and equity is at the center. We want to make sure that if the Clean Energy Jobs Act is passed, we will have a just and equitable energy transition in our state as a fundamental civil right for all, especially as it relates to ensuring that our communities have access to clean energy benefits. We're talking about equitable access to good paying solar jobs. So this conversation is important. Your voice is important, and we appreciate all that you're doing in your communities now to move this work forward. Thank you so much for your time and your interest.